Hello and welcome back to Ravenloft Adventures. Sit a while and listen. The Barovian calendar, long used by the lands of the core, is widely known to derive from the foundation of the nation of Barovia by the ancient von Zaroviches. Many Barovians, however, also mark this date as what they call the first revelation, when the mists parted to create the world. The first recorded event is the formal founding of the State Church of Andral in 1608, which received blessing and official sanctioning of the von Zaroviches. The church evolved out of the worship of an archetypical tribal sun god named Andral or Enderel in historical documents. Though once widespread, the religion died out in the 4th century. Little is known of the church's dogma or practices. The few remnants of Andral temples that still survive have all been converted into places of worship for Morning Lord in the centuries since. The next significant event during this period is the invasion of Nureni horde in approximately 230 Barovian calendar. Although effectively forgotten in the wake of the Turk occupation, Nureni were just as fearsome as the Turks. Barovians stopped them under the remarkable command of Nicoleta von Zarovich, the legendary general princess. Though the horde's assault was relatively brief, maybe about 7 months by some accounts, the Nureni advanced west for Svalich Pass as far as Valaki, where they were defeated after a 3-month siege. Some scholars point out similarities between them, their culture, and horsemen of Gundarak. Indeed, Gundarakite death god Erlin is in all likelihood an aspect of the demon lord Erik Khan, whom the Nureni supposedly worshipped. Thus, the flow of history may have come full circle, as modern Barovias oppress the very people that assaulted their kingdom over 5 centuries ago. Due to years of infighting, the court of Barovia was not prepared for the Turk invasion in 320 Barovian calendar. Though the word Turk is rarely spoken in Barovia today without a curse, the origins of the Turks themselves are hazy at best. Like the Nureni, they came from the east, though their conquest was spurred by an astonishing religious zeal. Many period accounts describe the behavior on the battlefield like that of a demon-possessed. The Turk conquered Barovia with astonishing speed, less than a month by some accounts. The warlord Durokan the Unstoppable, better known as Dorian, was a wicked zealot who knew no fear. Unlike other barbarian hordes, the Turks did not raise their spoils and move on. Instead, they settled in the conquered lands to bring the whole world under the eye of their god. This was the ultimate shame for von Zaroviches, who fled west as refugees. The fortunes of Barovia reversed, with the coming of age of Strad von Zarovich, the eldest son of Barov. Strad was a youth of enormous resolve, who pledged to rebuild his family's army and lead it against the invaders. For 27 years, Strad did just that, inching eastward with a combination of fearlessness, tactical genius, and a matchless charisma that stroked his troops' patriotism. By the 347, the last of the Turks were driven from their camps near the modern village of Barovia. Strad began rebuilding his family's kingdom by renovating Durokan's toppled citadel, dubbing it Castle Ravenloft to honor his mother Ravenia. The castle opened in 348, and as a year later, the Balverzi, mysterious assassins of Ravenloft, made an attempt on Khan's life. They failed, and their masters were never exposed, but Strad could not elude his enemies forever, and we all know the story of the massacre at Castle Ravenloft and what followed after. After the refugees from Forlorn and Bloodspur came to Barovia and brought their customs with them, the first contact between Barovia and Gundarak occurred. Count Strad and Duke Gundar loathed one another from the moment the mists revealed their realms' shared border in 593, but the hatred was never so intense as to spark war between Barovia and Gundarak. Modern Barovia truly began to take shape in 736 when Dr. Henrik Dominiani, the warden of an asylum near Tüffeldorf, assassinated Duke Gundar. Few Gundarakites shed a tear when Gundar was slain. Apparently, his remains were left to rot wherever he fell. Gundarak collapsed into years of true anarchy. In the wake of the Great Upheaval in 740, Khan Strad von Zarovich chose to capitalize on the power vacuum. Making a bold move, he ordered warriors of Barovia to annex Gundarak. 9 bloody months of fighting ensued as ragtag Gundarak partisans, enticed by a brief taste of freedom, waged brutal guerrilla war against the Barovian forces. The fighting culminated in the Tüffeldorf massacre, when the treacherous Captain Abel Ivilsikova captured and beheaded the partisan leaders under the pretext of negotiation. In the years since the Great Upheaval, Gundrak has been brought firmly under Barovia's rigid control. Resentment bred by over a decade and a half of armed occupation, however, seems to be leading unavoidably towards escalating ethnic bloodshed. In 748, the outspoken Gundrakite separatist Ardonk Zarieza began working on vision of Gundarak as it once was. Zarieza continues to fan the flames of hate with ethnic pride and patiently revisioning notions of Gundrakite history, even going so far as to paint previous rulers of Gundarak patriotic monarchs unjustly toppled from power. The scattered Gundrakite freedom fighters in Western Barovia are devoted to Zarieza's principles, though he himself denies any connection to violent rebels. Most Barovians believe that Zarieza and his supporters are allied to the remnants of Gundrakite army holding Castle Honadora in Invidia and the Vistana in the Follow Gabriel Adere. This suspicion was confirmed in the minds of many last year when the rebels blew up the Barovian garrison in Zeidenberg with a wagon load of gunpowder supposedly smuggled into the realm from Invidia. Barovia's population has 4 distinct ethnic groups: Barovians, Gundrakites, Forfarians, and Tani, who came from Bloodspore. While the broad cultural differences between these groups are minimal today, they can generally be distinguished by their general appearance and language. The wretched irony of the conflict between Barovians and Gundrakites is that an outsider would be hard-pressed to tell them apart by their physical appearance. Woe to the traveler who confuses one for the other. All Barovian groups dress in a similar manner, though modern Gundrakites prefer to distinguish themselves in trifling ways from the Barovian oppressors. Woolen head shawl is a customary tradition for all women, although Barovians wear it only when married and Gundrakites only when unattached. Misunderstandings over the kerchief tradition have caused more than one bloody brawl between young men. Moreover, Barovian women wear black for 5 years following the death of even their most remote relation, and thus seldom wear any other color. As with the vast majority of the folk throughout the core, most Barovians live in poverty. Most Barovians are subsistence farmers, herders or fishermen, living day to day on what meager resources they can summon from the land. Serfdom is still widespread in rural areas, where the boyars oversee the productive use of von Zarevich's lands. Barovians relish alcohol, the only distraction from the dreary existence. Wine accompanies finer meals, and plum brandy called tsuika is enjoyed both before and after eating. True nobles are vanishing creatures in Barovia, and none of Barovia's ancient families but the von Zareviches hold the land. The Count is master of all, and the modern aristocracy consists of his duly appointed burgomasters and boyars. The old families, such as Romuncules, Ivilsikovas, Watchers, and innumerable others, are slowly dying out. Their glories faded, their gold dwindled, and their sons and daughters scattered to the corners of the world. The exception is, of course, the Lisniers, who, through treachery, managed to establish their own realm of Borka. Barovians marry young, boys often by the age of 16 and the girls as early as 13. Arranged marriages are not commonly observed, but many parents pressure their young kids to marry into money as early as possible. Unfortunately for such couples, Barovian customs forbid both divorce and remarriage. Barovian families once advertised the availability of their daughters for marriage by hanging a wreath of flowers on their front door, but the practice has long since abandoned. Such girls had a tendency to vanish in the night. Despite the sometimes fractious ethnic divisions in Barovia, the folk share a common unifying element: a fairly frosty demeanor. Life under stern gaze of Count Strahd von Zarevich has forged them into harsh people who mind their own business. Strangers are not welcomed, and questions are rebuffed with disregard and glares. Travelers will find their appearance, accent, manner, and possessions scrutinized with suspicion by all. This cheerless manner may be attributed to some degree of a crippling fear of the supernatural, especially the undead that pervades Barovia. Doors and windows are dutifully and securely locked the moment the sun drops below the horizon. Indeed, I have it on a good standing that a Barovian mother would not dare open her door after nightfall, even to save her own shrieking kid from hungry wolves. Though Barovians believe in magic, the vast majority of them have never seen it in practice, at least outside of a local cleric. Most folk regard magic as a secret as old as time and riddled with spiritual risks too terrible to contemplate. Arcane magic, well, all magic except divine, is practiced in secret in Barovia, as the common folk believe that all such power is a gift granting from demons. Since the popular opinion holds that arcane spellcasters are unquestionably the minions of evil, the agents of the boyars and burgomasters rarely discourage violence against them. Villages are rife with tales of suspected spellcasters lynched in full view of Barovian soldiers. The vast majority of Barovians are not religious, even after seeing miracles performed by clerics. Most of them believe that the nebulous gods of old are literally missing or dead, and the churches and sanctuaries for pretenders and fools. They seldom attend churches except when attending funerals. In fact, even in settlements with a functioning temple, weddings are commonly held in the local inn. Only the most optimistic young couples arrange for such weddings. Most Barovians believe in somewhat simplistic cosmology. They believe in heaven and hell, which are called Rifugu and Iadul. Rifugu is a vague and mysterious place, not so much a paradise but a place of rest, where the weariness of mortal coil is shed for an eternal spiritual slumber. As with most heavenly realms, it is thought to lie above the mortal world, beyond the stars. The souls of all mortals, even those who are genuinely wicked in life, are thought to journey to heaven upon death. In contrast to Rifugu's ambiguity, most Barovians have a vivid conception of Iadul as a place of unspeakable horror. Fragments of ancient Barovian epic Flight from the Balanox describe Iadul as a fetid pit of disease that stretches into the bowels of earth. It is a place of demons, and any mortal who finds themselves there forge his own damnation without the god's judgment. Unfortunately, demons are thought to be able to claw their way into the mortal realm to wreak havoc and further their dark desires. The most prominent religion in Barovia is the cult of the Morning Lord. Martin the Mad Pelker was regarded as a harmless eccentric when he first began teaching about the Morning Lord. Gradually, with the aid of his first young acolyte, he was able to attract a modest congregation at the sanctuary of Blessed Succor in the village of Barovia. The cult's religious center has moved westward in the centuries since, first to Valaki and then to Kresk. Most Barovians view the cult with bemusement or cynicism. The Morning Lord's message of blind hope in the face of darkness understandably strikes many as foolishly naive. Some Barovians, especially boyars and their agent, grow suspicious of the cult's popularity among Gundrakites, some even blaming the church for the violent acts of rebels. Gundrakites, for their part, seemingly cannot help but be drawn like lambs to the Morning Lord's cheery promise of salvation. Erlin is a puzzling Gundrakite god of death and mischief. His demeanor can be described as that of a trickster, yet thoroughly malicious and scatterbrained. He supposedly created death as a gleeful deception, convincing the first man that his demise was unavoidable. The mortal, of course, promptly died. Erlin has thousands of demonic minions that assist him in his duties. His supervision of the departed is cast in the metaphor of herding the cattle or sheep, though Erlin often neglects his obligations and allows dead to roam free, hence the existence of undead. The god of undead has experienced a revival of sorts in recent years. Many young Gundrakites now associate him with the Gundrakite ethnic pride, using faith as a banner around which to rally. And this is it for History and Populace of Barovia. This was a long one, so thank you everybody for sticking around. So as always, please like, share and subscribe, and remember, mists are not your friends.